All right. So we're back, and I forgot what we were talking about. This.
Yes, great point. So in New Mexico, we obviously have the administrative rule and state statute, right? But the administrative rule 11035 is basically established to establish uniformity and standards across the whole state for accurate voter rolls, secure and up to date, while protecting eligible voters from improper removal, right? And that's covered in the National Voting Rights Act. NVRA covers a non discriminatory process. This law, also a national law created for routine audits, duplicate prevention, address verification, and coordination with state and federal agencies, right? And so what New Mexico did is we established statute, and then we established the Secretary of State's office established administrative role for county clerks to utilize in this process. And so the Secretary of State's office participates in a program called ERIC.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ERIC does is there's 26 states that are participating in ERIC. So ERIC is a electronic registration information system. And so if your daughter has moved to one of those states and goes and gets a driver's license in that state, eventually we'll get the cancellation if that state is a participant in the ERIC program, right? And so the next mailer that your daughter would receive if she gets a driver's license in a state that is participating is a confirmation, right?
Okay, so in order for you guys to work with other states in regarding to people moving, each state has to be part of ERIC. Is that what I'm
Correct.
hearing?
That
Okay.
there is not a national database exchange for voter registration cross
You
registrations
think
to
that's
cancel.
necessary?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so I think for us participating in ERIC, we get a monthly batch. Actually, it's weekly now, I believe. The Secretary of State's office just enhanced that system, and so our office is able. I could show you a sample of what those cross-state voter registration notices look like. They email them to them. We immediately cancel because we found another address in another state that we sent the mailer to saying we have record that you moved here. Please cancel your registration or confirm. Most of them send it back and cancel the registration here. I'll show
Okay.
you
Okay.
an email that we get from folks all the time.
So is the how long is that process?
What do you
Like
mean? How long is it?
you get some information that my daughter moved, and then you send her mailer. I mean, like, is she required to have like 60 days to respond, and then she's taken off, or
There's not a requirement. It's simply again, it's ensuring that the voter one is participating in the process, right? And again, we have to have a non-discriminatory process of removing folks from the voter roll as a federal national standard, right? And so this simple letter is and I have one up in front of me now. It was dated April 13th, 2026. We tell the voter, please cancel your voter registration. Essentially,
mm-hmm.
we have you living in another state. The voter, has their voter ID and their address. They sign it and date it, and we use that to cancel the registration, right? So it's a cool process. I like that we're part of the ERIC program.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I know that there was a lot of misinformation about what ERIC was, and in a world of fast moving social media, right? We tend to get a lot of misinformation, and people fear what they don't know. But for ERIC, I think it has truly helped us have more accurate voter rolls in the state of New Mexico.
So my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
she hasn't voted since 2018. She went to Washington, and so I'm hearing that you probably sent her a notice.
Is it the state of Washington?
Yes.
So they are part of the program, so she will eventually come up. So what tends to happen, right, is if we don't get your daughter, I assume, still receives mail at your house. Never did a forwarding address to the post office.
No, I believe she did because she was in the military. So maybe
Okay,
that's a different, another dynamic in there. But she doesn't typically
potentially.
get mail at my
Did she
house.
ever get a Yokava ballot or overseas or anything of that nature?
They haven't been overseas.
Okay,
So,
so
and in Washington, all they do is like mail in ballots.
okay, interesting. I they are a participant, right? But I would imagine that we have not received anything back as a return, right?
From
So
them?
from your daughter or from you, like, or the post office, right? Return to sender, undeliverable is what we call it.
Oh,
And so if we don't receive an undeliverable, we don't place your daughter in an inactive status, right? And so it does fall on the voter has some responsibility, right? We need the public's help and the voters'
right.
help in when you move, you should send us a cancellation notice. There is very few self cancellation notices that we receive from folks. It's very seldom, right? We
Oh,
see what comes in the queue.
self cancellations.
Yep.
People
Which is that
actually
form.
going on the line or
Using that
sending.
form. Yep.
You see very few of those.
Very few.
So we need to get some voter education, is what I'm hearing.
We do, and we did
Okay.
a voter outreach campaign several years ago. We actually did some
Yeah.
paid TV ads for it, right? Because we want to educate folks on their part and their involvement in helping us have a robust, accurate voter roll.
Right. And we all need to come together to do that together.
Absolutely.
Even though you guys are paid to do it, it all takes, we all have a responsibility.
Well, and you know, to add to that, yes, when we say we're paid to do it, we have four full. Sandoval County is lean, right? We have 117,000 voters, and our Bureau of Elections staff is comprised of 10 full-time staff. Okay, we have a manager, two supervisors, and we have
Yeah.
four full-time election specialists. Four individuals updating thousands of voter registration
Yeah.
records. That's very lean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so um, when I say we need the public's help, it is absolutely essential, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no way four individuals can, review thousands of
Right.
records to update,
Yeah.
right? That's just not possible in any county.
Yeah.
Most counties operate pretty lean
Yeah.
in New Mexico.
So I know that I'm going to get the question, well, why didn't you have her cancel? And I did it with purpose.
Right.
Right. I didn't go and make her do it. I don't even think I told her, because, you get these and you forget about them mostly, but I wanted to see the process. See, everything that I kind of do is
Right.
so I can see the process.
Right.
And that's why I didn't tell her to go do that, or, push her and force her to go do it,
Right. Right.
because I wanted to see the process. So, I will have her do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great tool for folks to do that. In fact, after your video, I shared a video about accurate voter rolls, the campaign, the media campaign that we did to our Facebook, just reminding folks, right?
Yeah.
We had an individual several years ago say, "My dead mother is still on your voter rolls." Okay. Come to find out, mom who lived in New Mexico, and I think the assertion was made, "My dead mother voted," right?
Oh.
And so I called that individual because that individual's a poll worker. They showed up in our commission meeting and said, "My dead mother is voting." So that individual came into my office. I pulled up the mother's voting record and history, and I showed that individual, "Your mom voted once in the state of New Mexico, and they voted at this elementary school, and their ballot was issued
Mm-hmm.
at this time." So the assertion that your dead mother has been voting is inaccurate. Here's your mother's voter record.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Well, why wasn't my mother's? She died several years ago. Why wasn't she canceled?" Well, did she die in the state of New Mexico? No, she died in another state. So we don't. We have what's called a death record master list.
Uh-huh.
It is not robust. For recording birth, we have the Social Security Administration. We don't have one national organization or agency that deals with death records, just birth records, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even
Okay.
that, each state, New Mexico Vital Statistics issues birth records and death records, right? And then we have the Social Security Administration who issues Social Security numbers, right? But there's not a centralized death record database, right? I mean, we have the master list, but it's not always updated, right?
Yeah.
And so we inform that voter that it's the family's obligation, right, to record a death certificate here
With the clerk.
with the county clerk, and certainly you don't have to pay to record it, but if there's property involved, most folks do record death certificates for property records, right? But in this instance, at minimum, provide us with the certificate, the death certificate.
Uh-huh.
So that individual, or an obituary, right? We were able to confirm with that voter the mother's obituary, and we canceled that voter's registration. So we encourage folks, your parents pass away and they were registered at one point, send a copy of the death certificate, send an obituary, and we'll cancel them. We certainly need the public's help in doing that.
So if they don't do that. And this is where like my concern was. Like I know my daughter. So New Mexico Secretary's SOS website,
Hmm.
the voter portal.
Right.
All you need to do to access anybody's record is their first name, their last name, their date of birth, and their county.
Hmm.
And when I go in there, right, if I'm going to be a devious person, I could actually put her on
An absentee.
and then get on the permanent absentee ballot. So why does it that portal have any types of security so that this doesn't this doesn't happen? I mean, I don't think that there's no
So
security there.
so here's where the security is. So this is new, that was newly implemented a few years ago, is that voters now have to put the last four digits of their social security number on their absentee ballot, right? So assuming you may know your daughter's social security number, right, or have memorized it. uh,
I don't.
okay, well, that's great. I mean,
I mean, I'm sure
so
I can find it because I'm her mother, but
right. So it would require, so anyone can request an absentee ballot, but say you wanted
okay,
to request an absentee ballot on behalf of your daughter, fill out a ballot, try to return it, you would need to obtain your daughter's last four of her social on the ballot. Otherwise, when we receive the ballot, we're looking for a signature, year of birth, and the last four of the social.
okay,
If we don't have the last four of the social, it goes in what we call a curing status, right? And so we'll send the voter, hey, your absentee ballot, a notice, your absentee ballot is not going to be processed because you're missing the last four of the social. Um,
I guess what I'm
voter
trying to say is before we go through all that, put more manpower into that. Why can't we just have a little bit more secure system on the voter portal so people can't even access that
um, and
information?
and quite frankly, I have not requested an absentee ballot, so I don't know that it does in a long time. So I don't know if that's even, if that's a prerequisite to request an app. I'm going to check right now if it requires you to have the last four of your social when
I
you
think it's a
request it.
driver's license and the social security number, but there's no way to check if I'm the actual person inputting that information. I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, if you have the voter social security number, you're pretty close to them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the average voter isn't going to have your daughter's social security number. You may be able to obtain that as her mother,
Okay.
right?
So then what happened with because I thought it was very nice that you sent me that article about the voter fraud. So this is kind of what we're talking about. That lady had all of that information. Did she go on the website to request an absentee ballot?
You know, that is still under investigation and
Okay.
through the court, but um, we spoke with the daughter and she said, I didn't vote, I live in another state and I voted here. I did not complete that, right? So immediately we contacted the sheriff's department, and they started their investigation.
Oh, okay.
And now mom has to figure out why,
Yeah, it's
or
still
mom
under
or daughter,
pending
right?
litigation. So
Right.
okay, but
but
something.
but when it is brought to our attention, we do report it, right?
Okay.
And again, in Mexico elections, no election's ever going to be perfect.
Yeah.
But in New Mexico, we have transparency and checks and balance built into our election system. So when we see irregularities, right, with folks, we can report those or escalate those to the Secretary of State's office, who would refer it to the Attorney General, or we report it to
Mm-hmm.
our sheriff's department, right? When we get that sort of complaint,
And you
and
got
that's
the
what happened.
complaint, and you were right on top of
We
it.
did. Hmm.
Okay, and we appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, what I'm hearing, there's no voter fraud. There's no voter fraud. So here I am trying to do searches for voter fraud, and that article didn't even come up. So I believe that if there's one case of voter fraud, we need to work on something,
Absolutely.
right? Because I would assume you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We take election, our job, very seriously, right? And I just wanted to follow up because in the request for absentee ballot, in order to request an absentee ballot, you need the driver's
Uh
license
huh.
number, you need the
So
last four of the social, and year of birth. So assuming you have that, then you have a bigger problem, because that identity theft, right? If
right,
you know all of that information on an individual you're requesting
and
an
that's why it's a
absentee ballot
felony,
for,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
It is, right?
Okay.
And again, when we are identified, and any voter, quite frankly, can go into the Secretary of State's website and look at their voting history, right? And if you didn't request an absentee ballot, that's your opportunity to report it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Call your county clerk and say, I didn't request that absentee ballot, I didn't vote an absentee ballot, etc., right? And then will look at it, look into it, and escalate it to the appropriate law enforcement
Yeah.
agency, right?
And what people should do is actually go to the New Mexico Secretary website, go to the voter portal,
Right.
and check your history, because
Absolutely.
it has all the history there, like you said, where
Absolutely.
you voted, when you voted,
Yep.
and that's how voters can be responsible and help the
Be
whole,
part of the
be
process.
part of it, but they got to do their part.
Absolutely.
So, okay, I want to move on from that, and I
Sure.
will have her cancel that.
Please do. Yes.
Somebody asked online, because I did ask if it was okay if I solicited questions, and somebody asked, ask about the process of tabulating ballots for write-in candidates.
That's a great question. So we do have one party, the Republican Party in New Mexico, has three candidates, statewide declared
Mm-hmm.
write-in candidates, right? A U.S. Senate candidate, a state treasurer candidate, and a state auditor candidate. And in Sandoval County, we also have New Mexico House of Representatives District 44 that only has a write-in candidate for the Republican Party ballot, right? And so what does that process look like? Well, the tabulator is programmed in a way that it looks for character recognition. Think of a tabulator as a scanner,
Mm-hmm.
a high speed scanner
Mm-hmm.
that looks for optical character resolution, right? And so when the voter bubbles in and doesn't put a name, it's going to be considered an undervote, right?
Okay.
Because in New Mexico, in order for your write-in vote to be counted, you have to actually write in the individual's name,
Does it
right?
have to be perfect, or?
It you want to strive and encourage folks to do that, but the Secretary of State's office has developed guidelines for the election board adjudicating that, right?
I
And
saw if it looks kind of closely to what the person's write-in name, then they'll allow that, right?
exactly, the election board, which is comprised of party balance, right? So you could have a Republican or a Democrat presiding judge. Not all of them could be the same party. There has to be balance.
Right.
Those judges have to have either a Democrat or deferring party. Well, all three of those judges look for voter intent, right? When they're adjudicating those ballots, and if
Mm-hmm.
the name is relatively close or there's a misspelling,
Yeah.
they're going to say the three of them are unanimously going to agree as part of the election code, and then say that's a valid vote for this individual who's a write-in,
So you
right?
have three people coming together
Absolutely.
to talk about it. And it's not just one to one
No,
person.
it is
Okay,
never
that's
just one
important.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes three judges, party balance, and in New Mexico we have, for Sandoval County, you could have a reader, a marker, and a verifier, right? So the reader reads, the marker marks the voter's intent, and then the verifier verifies. Because when you people think, we've had all these misconceptions and misinformation about tabulation, right? And we do a post-election audit, okay? In that post, and it's required. Every county has a post-election audit of a minimum of one precinct, okay? And what we find when we're doing and it's a public process. You're welcome to
Yes.
join us
Mm-hmm.
after this election. What we find is that when you're looking for these ballots and you're hand telling them, we get more and more mistakes with human error in telling. So we've always had a perfect audit here in Sandoval County. And what we get is when people are doing hand telling, we have mistakes and discrepancies. So then we get that same ballot or that batch where the discrepancy is, sent it to another election board that is here, comprised of the same party balance, reviewing the work of that first board,
Mm-hmm.
and then they catch the error that they missed the vote, right?
Okay.
So we have more mistakes in that process. And so
And it's human error.
it's human error,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so with write-ins, where what everyone can expect is they're not going to have any write-in results on election night. Not going to
So okay,
happen.
so let me start there. We're going to pick the ballot, and you put in all of those people, and you circle them, and they're perfect. When I go and get my ballot, does it go in the tabulator?
It goes in the
And
tabulator,
then?
and when the scanner recognizes that the oval is filled out, right, and the individual in that space for that particular contest wrote a name or even as small as a dot on the line
Uh
of
huh.
where it says write in,
Uh huh.
is going to be a reason that tabulator diverts the ballot into what we call the write in. And I'll show you a live demonstration here. Well, probably not for the video, but I could give a tour
Uh
later
huh.
and go over that. But it'll divert the ballot to what's called the write-in diverter bin. Okay.
Now, okay, So does it count all the other votes
It
or?
counts all the other votes, and it will not count write-in. It'll recognize that a write-in
Oh,
is there because it right in order to qualify a write-in, it has to be qualified by manual review by an election board.
okay, I see. So
So
you'll
it'll
count all the other bubbles,
exactly
and
those
then if there's a write-in, then those three races
right
are not going to be counted by the,
the
was that
tabulator.
tabulator?
Hmm.
They get shot out, and then that's where the board comes in.
They get diverted into the write-in diverter bin. That
Okay.
write-in diverter bin per each tabulator can has the capacity to hold about 150 ballots, right?
Okay.
So if you get a busy site like the admin building or St. Francis who has 1,000 voters, well, what that election board is going to have to do is if you have high turnout of Republican voters who are going and voting for write-ins, which we are expect that is going to happen, then the election board, which consists of the party balance, the presiding
Mm-hmm.
judge along with the deferring party
Mm-hmm.
judge has to pull the ballots from the write-in diverter bin,
Mm-hmm.
lock them in the write-in ballot box, and those have to come here the night of election, and it requires manual review by the election board the next day. So
The next day.
the next day, yeah, it will not happen on election night.
So
By law, we have to adjourn our absentee board by 11 p.m. on election night and start the next morning at 9 a.m.
okay, I see.
Mistakes happen when people are tired.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
absentee board and your folks are here at 7 a.m. on election day,
Yeah.
6 a.m., right?
And they're here all day, the same
Right,
people. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So um, it we can expect several days after the election that we'll have results for writing candidates in Sandoval County and most counties as well.
So with that, um, do the write-in candidates do? I don't know if you know this or not, but if they just get one vote, they win, right?
That is not the case.
Or they
So
have to get 2,300.
so the election code says that whatever requirement of petition signatures they have, the percentage, um, they have to get that many votes throughout the state, or if it's a districted race, they have to get that many of votes within that district. Which I would imagine that the statewide declared write-ins are probably going to get the number of votes that they would of petition signatures. That's what the
Okay, so it
election code
matches the
reads.
petition. Oh,
It's
okay.
that
Well, that
same
kind of makes
percentage.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. So I would imagine that they will obtain that, right?
So if
Um,
they got if they were write-ins, they didn't need nomination petitions beforehand to get on the write-in ballot.
Um, that is correct because they missed the
The
first
deadline,
filing
the
day.
fast
Right,
filing
right.
date. Oh, okay. Well, that's
Although
interesting.
some, I think, in did get petition signatures, so they have some in there. They just maybe weren't enough to do it on filing day. But the portal was still open, so they may
Oh,
have
I
enough now.
see.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just say, for example, one of the write-in candidates, he needed 5,000 petitions. I don't think they needed 5,000 petitions, but so then if he didn't get any, he's going to have to get 5,000 votes,
Right. Right.
write-in votes.
Yes. Right in votes
Okay.
in
Okay, I
order
didn't know
to be
that.
placed on the ballot in the general election.
So I'm sitting here thinking, oh, everybody's, oh, don't forget the write-in ballots, and I'm like, well, if they get one, if they vote for themselves, they're going to win. Well, that's
No, that's
not
not
true.
true. Yeah.
Okay.
They need to get the percentage to be qualified to
Okay.
go to the
Okay,
general
that's good
election.
to know. Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Awesome. Okay, so another question we have. Um, this person would like to know how Sandoval County secures elections. And I know that's probably a heated question. So, not a heated question, but a very multifaceted question.
Yeah, I was going to say, in what way secure election? Yeah, I mean, is there any more context or just secure
Okay,
election?
well, yes, there's another sentence here.
Okay,
I would like to know how Sandoval County secures elections. I would also like to know if illegals are voting here. So I'm assuming maybe she is asking about citizenship and voting
right.
in context.
And so that's a great question. So again, there's so much misinformation out there, right? And so in New Mexico, again, are we perfect? No, but we come pretty damn close, right? MIT thinks we do. Why? Because we're a paper ballot state. We have required post-election audits, right? So with technology, the motor vehicle division, we have three databases: confirmed citizens, non-confirmed citizens, and questionable, right? So folks who are here working, perhaps at Intel and they're on a visa, right? They're a non-citizen, but they have a driver authorization, right? So that would be in the motor vehicles database. And so um, if there was a person or a voter who was a non-citizen prior to all the new technology that we had and they were able to register, perhaps, right? Uh, Nothing is foolproof, right? Just like our Joint Chiefs of Staff could probably tell you that if you have malicious intent, bad actors, and unsupervised process, our nuclear arsenal is probably hackable, right? But you have to have more people, you have to have checks and balances and the right people there, and never give one or two people uncontrolled access, right? We have checks and balances in our election system. We have party balance, we have watchers, we have
Mhm.
observers for that process, right? Um,
But I guess the
so
whole this maybe this question hinges on whether people believe, because I think this is going to go up against this in the Supreme Court, whether only citizens can vote. Because we know we have a lot of non citizens here. We know we have a lot of non citizens getting driver's licenses here or an ID here. So I guess this is where the question is, because that is a question, right?
it is, yeah. So, if they are able to get a fake social security number, right, and apply it, then essentially we're confirming off of that social security number, right? But again, perhaps in the past, but where we've evolved now, when we get a voter registration, right, we have we run it. We do a death and felon check, and that database is live exchange, data exchange with the Secretary of
Mm-hmm,
State's
mm-hmm.
office in conjunction with the Motor Vehicle Division. And so, if they are not a citizen, right, they're not going to be eligible to vote. We're not going to process the
But if
registration.
they get a driver's license, okay, I haven't gotten a driver's license in what seems like forever. Um, the driver's license or a standard New Mexico license doesn't check citizenship, does it?
So there's a couple things, right? We have Real ID, right?
Well, I know
Uh,
that checks citizenship.
right,
I got one of
and
those.
right, and so by the way, when we talk about confirmed citizenship, uh, look at how long Real ID was passed in '04, I believe.
Yes,
Look at how long it took to get every
yes.
state. And what the federal government did back then is they said, you know, we will talk about this being a problem, right? About non-citizens getting, be able to ride in a plane, etc. Right? Uh, Real ID was for that purpose.
No, a real ID was for what happened after 9/11.
9/11, exactly. And
Right.
so we wanted to see citizenship, right? And so, but what the federal government did is they didn't create a database for states to utilize. Instead, they put an unfunded mandate on every state to do that, and many states had to get a extension, several
Well,
extensions,
it was
right?
extended several times at the
Several
federal
times.
level.
And look at how long that took to implement, 20
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
right? So when folks are talking about this, the current passed legislation, and there's multiple variations of the Save Act, what does that do? It throws it back on the state, and it only gives states 30 days to come into compliance. When what we did in passing Real ID was to defend national security, and it took 20 years for states to become compliant, right? And the federal
Well, I don't
government
think
had
it
to
was
do it
compliant. I think it was because they kept extending it. Now,
because of compliance,
because they weren't compliant. You
right?
think they would have just cracked down and said, okay, we're finding you? That would have
do,
probably.
do you know how many folks had to go in and get court orders to change their birth certificates were incorrect? There was several, right? I mean, district court judges were inundated with all of that for several years to get folks compliant with Real ID in New Mexico, right? And so, um, again, it's a multifaceted
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Can a person confirm that uh, folks aren't going to try to manipulate the system? No, right? Um, it, what we get from the motor vehicle when a voter does registration for motor vehicle division, I believe that now the systems we utilize help us ensure that only citizens are voting. But is there a potential for that one-off scenario? Absolutely, right?
Because I don't, we don't check.
We do check.
You
So
do check for city, but how do you do that
when you
if?
have a real ID driver's license,
Well, yeah, I know the real ID. I got mine. I submitted all my stuff, so I believe.
we are utilizing that same database for voter registrations. It is a
Oh,
live synchronized database. So
oh, say
we
that
are
again.
running. It's a live synchronized database, right? There's a data sync happening. So when we get a voter registration, we have a live synchronization with the motor vehicle division to confirm citizenship. So
Okay.
the confirmed citizens, that's a quick scenario, right? The unconfirmed citizens, it's going to kick it out and say they're not eligible. They're not they have a driver authorization card with the motor vehicle department, but they're not a U.S. citizen who can vote in an
Okay,
election.
wait. So let me just get this straight. So right now, you go to the motor.
We use Service, right?
Right.
Service is our voter registration system. Service has a live data synchronization with the Motor Vehicle Department of New Mexico to confirm citizenship.
So from my side, I go in, get an ID. I can get the real ID, or can I get a standard ID now? Did they change?
So if you're real ID, you're confirmed citizen.
No, if I don't even have an ID, this is the first time. I do. Do I get a choice whether I get real or just a regular standard state ID?
I think it's.
Is it still the same?
I think it is still the same. And so again, when you can get the real ID confirmation, you're confirmed citizen, right? Anything else, you're put into the questionable queue of
Okay, okay.
unconfirmed citizen, right?
And you
So
get those both distinctions.
we do.
And then the people that are not confirmed citizens.
They will show that they're not citizens. So let's give a hypothetical scenario.
Okay.
We have a you know, engineer from overseas working here in New Mexico at one of our large corporations, right? And they have a driver authorization card, and they go to a voter location and try to do a same day voter registration, right? So they're going to enter their New Mexico ID number. When it comes to our registration, we do a citizenship, death, and felon check when we process a registration. A button that sends that data exchange to MVD in real time, and then it's going to say, well, this is not a individual who's a citizen because they're a driver authorization. They're not a citizen of the United States, and it's going to reject it, and we're going to reject their application. So
can you guys legally do that if there's no like set standard law at the national or state level that only citizens can vote, or is there something?
There is a
well, I know, but that's the debate right now.
Well, I don't think there's a debate about it because it's in our Constitution, right?
Well, I think it is.
only citizens of the United States can vote, and where that goes, it's clear, right?
So the state of New Mexico is upholding that in the Constitution.
Absolutely, and in fact, New Mexico state statute codifies what already has.
Okay.
Where you get into this is if there's malicious intent. And there are folks who steal thousands of dollars by committing
yes,
real fraud on a person's identity, right? Identity theft is real. So if you have folks who are paying thousands of dollars to steal somebody's identity and have their access, potentially they could do it, right? I'm not going to tell you that they can't.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to tell you is that in New Mexico, we have established a system to have more secure elections by confirming citizenship
because of the real ID.
Absolutely, and utilizing the motor vehicles database when we process voter
Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, and a lot of people, if they know this, right, electioners, we can get into the weeds about everything we do. It's a lot, right? Yeah. And the average voter doesn't know this. They just hear a sound bit on a social media platform, and it scares them, right? And then they run with it. Right.
Or they hear what's happening in other states.
Right.
Right. And other states are different than New Mexico because they have their own laws and we have our own laws.
Right.
So just let me clarify again. If a lot of people don't want to get real IDs, even though they're supposed to, right? And a lot of people say, oh no, the government is, we don't need to give the feds more information. And I'm like, they know everything about you already. What's the problem?
If you have a smartphone, you're on social media, they know about you.
They know about you, right?
Right.
So
you pay property taxes, they know about you.
If a person doesn't want to get the real ID and they want to stick with the standard ID, they're going to be flagged. Tell me the process again.
So assuming that they don't have an existing registration, right? They have to confirm their social security number, right? They have to confirm that at minimum. And that goes, whether they provide a real ID or not, we're going to run their social security number in our system, right? Again, New Mexico has come a long way in having this database and data exchange with the voter record in service, right? Again, nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing is. But we do a pretty damn good job at vetting citizenship for eligible voters in the state of New Mexico.
Okay. And you're off at the Sandoval County agrees that only citizens should be voting. Is that the stance?
Every county clerk in New Mexico, every election official will tell you it's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution.
New Mexico state statute codifies what
Okay.
the U.S. Constitution says, that only eligible citizens can vote in an
Okay.
election, right?
Okay.
And when we find out otherwise, we're going to be the first ones to go and report that individual and prosecute them, right? And
Well, I'm
so
going to tell you something that brings me comfort that you guys acknowledge that
right.
and that you follow that, because there's a big discussion nationally about this very issue. I'm sure you know.
And I think it's perpetuated on misinformation,
Yeah.
because anybody who takes an oath to the Constitution knows what the Constitution
Yeah.
says, and we all uphold our oath of
And I
office.
think a lot of it is just not misinformation. I just hate that word, but we're not educating enough either,
Right.
right? And people were so polarized they don't even want to ask a question.
Right.
So that
Well,
keeps them even more in the dark.
and I know you hate the term misinformation, but when you have a lack of funding to do educational outreach because it's expensive, right? But then you have a quick 30-second video that
Correct.
crops something, shows something, and provides a
For
narrative
viewership.
for viewership, right?
Yeah.
And then you get folks, and it goes viral, right? Then you get
Yes.
folks believing that. And then how can a county who's lean like Sandoval County uh,
Combat that.
combat that,
Yeah.
right? That's thousands of dollars in
Yeah.
public media
Yeah.
campaign to combat misinformation, right? Or information that's not true.
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
And I do agree with you. That's why I've started this channel, Common Ground, sitting down and just relaxing a little bit
right,
from the constant 10-second soundbite, because it's
right,
not helping, I don't think,
never.
at all, at all. Okay, so that's awesome. Let me see what else we have here. Um, only Rio Ranch. Is there any other cities? Because you got the national, you got the state, and then you got the county, and then you got the city. It just gets confusing
It
sometimes.
does.
And so I know in Rio Rancho we have voter ID.
Hmm.
And so because we voted for voter ID in 2012,
Hmm.
overwhelmingly, the city of Rio Rancho now has some supplemental rules about the voter ID and what can be used,
Hmm.
and how you check the voter ID. I spoke with Alexandra Pylon yesterday, and she said that they wouldn't even let her use her passport to vote because it wasn't on the
That's interesting.
but somebody could use a Sam's card, because in our election voter rules it says you could use a Costco card if it had your name, if it had your picture on there.
That's interesting.
But
Uh,
they wouldn't let her use her passport because the word passport probably wasn't in the rules,
Interesting. In the charter, right?
in
It
the
was a charter
charter.
amendment.
Yeah.
So I know in 2012, I think 5 or 6 thousand voters voted on that ordinance.
I think it was like 8,000.
8,000. Okay,
And then
I
like
didn't know
only
the.
and then only like 1,700 maybe
Okay,
voted against it.
against it. Okay. I love this conversation about voter ID. So you were just a candidate in the Rio Rancho City election. So tell me what voter ID, why it makes you feel more secure about elections. Just because from my understanding.
Well, one, because you have this misinformation, this not correct thinking, that because there's voter ID fraud in another state, that it's happening here,
Okay.
right? And we need ID for everything. I mean, buy alcohol, to get a tattoo, you have to have a voter ID for some of these things, and we don't even think about it. We just,
Right.
here you go, here it is. So why is the one most important thing, voting for elected officials, why is that not required? Even if we have all the most secure system, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just another added step to make sure we don't get the fraud.
Right.
That's where I'm coming from.
And I hear that as a valid argument. Again, there's so much misinformation. So I'm going to dissect a little bit about voter ID. Um, college kids, okay? College kids get fake IDs, right? How long has that existed?
Since I was a teenager.
Okay. So we
But
have
but I tell you now, do you think they still could do that now today? I mean,
so
I say that because I did that when I was a teenager.
so I would argue that it's probably more common today, right?
Really?
Because you have AI, right? You have 3D printers, right?
Mm.
And you have some really smart people who, again, malicious intent, bad actors, unsupervised, they're going to run amok, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you leave somebody in a bank or access to thousands of dollars at a bank who has a criminal record or uh, robbery in their criminal record unsupervised, what's going to happen?
Yeah, but 18-year-olds typically aren't even voting. I mean, the data suggests that they're not even
My
voting.
and my point with that is how easy it is to get a voter ID, a
To
fake
get an
ID,
ID, a
an
fake
ID,
ID,
an ID, fake ID,
unless it's
right?
a real ID.
Unless it's a real ID. But what is preventing a 3D printer, the evolution of AI, from putting somebody else's picture on an ID with your name and address? How are you authenticating that it's a legitimate identification card in an election to prevent fraud? You said you want to prevent fraud. How does a fake ID prevent fraud? What's to stop somebody from putting their picture on a driver's license or identification card that looks legitimate with your picture, with their picture on your information?
Well, because the security starts with that person registering in the first place,
But
right?
uh,
So then you have on your end, you check the citizenship. You have
well,
this
it's a city election, so the city does. So right. So let's take that. Sorry, let me rephrase that question. So you're Corrine Rios. You're registered. You're a qualified elector to vote in the city of Rio Rancho's
Mm-hmm.
election. Okay. So now somebody who's malicious wants to prove a point goes and creates a identification
Yes.
card that is acceptable, and they put their picture with your first name and last name, your date
Yeah,
of
I know
birth
how the
and
getting
address, right?
right.
What how and then they go and vote, get a ballot in your name. They've showed a picture with your
But they're
information.
supposed to check the signatures.
There's no I look at that database. The BOD does not show your signature that comes from your driver's license or voter roll.
So then why does that say that? I think it says that in this charter, does it not?
I don't know, but if the charter says that, they would have to pay millions of dollars to get a system that can have signature verification. Signature verification is a really difficult challenge to have that in a database, and I'm sure
Yeah.
some BODs do have that, but Rio Rancho uses the same ballot on demand provider that New Mexico offers, right?
Uh-huh.
There is not a signature
I'm gonna have to check
comparison.
that out because I was talking. Maybe I was talking with Alex. Alex, I don't know, but I remember something saying they have to check the signatures. So then I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I wonder how many they say sorry, these don't match, and that was going to be one of my questions. So now I'm really confused.
I don't know how they would verify signature because unless they're doing something that is new to me, I'm not
Okay.
sure. But again, going back to the central question, if somebody wants to commit voter fraud,
Well, I would say
and
that there's a signature verification, but so now we're
I
right because if somebody makes a fake ID, they're going to have to sign the ID. And if that ID signature doesn't match the database, then they should be put a stop to it, right?
but my point is you have folks who are working as a poll worker, right? They go through a training. They do it once or twice a year.
Yep.
They do not have the capacity to pull up your signature in the BOD to look you up as a
There
voter.
there is no.
There is not.
Okay.
and
Well,
and
then
I would
I'll.
argue that if there is, I would love to know about it.
Okay, I don't know about
Yeah,
that part,
right.
but I'm going to look at the signature verification. See, because you
Hmm.
just asked me about me.
Right.
I think I've read signature
Yes.
verification, so that's why I'm comforted. They're checking the signatures.
Okay.
But see,
So
now we're kind of like, what's going on?
right. Well, and I could tell you if signature is the fail safe, then um, absolutely right. So when people talk about voter ID, again, technology, bad actors, they're always going to be there, right? But as much as elected officials and politicians talk and use it, and let's be honest, they use it to raise money, right?
Yeah. But I
And
could go vote in my daughter's place.
for City Rio Rancho, how can you
Well,
vote in
no.
her?
Okay, this next election for the primaries, can I go vote in her name?
If you provide her name, address, and year of birth, you could commit voter fraud and potentially vote in her name. But
See,
your daughter would then say, "I didn't vote in New Mexico's
well, yes,
election."
I know that. I mean,
Right.
I wanted to do that, and I thought I better not do that.
but again, what is voter ID? If we're
Because see,
talking about
but
voter
I know,
ID,
but see, I was looking at the signature verification. See, so that's why I'm thinking there's that last step of verification with the signature verification,
mhm,
right? But now we're both questioning it. So now what are we going to have to do?
right?
I'm going to have to go find that so I don't.
Have you ever signed, in running for office, have you ever signed a letter to folks who maybe contributed to a campaign of yours with your signature on it?
Yeah, I
So your signature is pretty easy to pull with AI,
well, I don't know about
right?
mine because mine's kind of messy, and mine's like a doctor signature. But
Mine is too. But my point is
yeah,
bad actors and malicious intent and
yes,
technology are out there, right? If we're truly talking about achieving voter ID, then it comes with authentication. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Number one, uh, voter ID should be free if anyone ever implements it, right? Number two, build, and it's going to cost money, build the capacity to authenticate that identification issued by the election jurisdiction at a ballot on demand system. Okay. So, because if you're accepting any universal ID, like a Costco card, what authenticates that?
right. That's what Alex was kind of hinting at, that it's pointless if we're using a Costco card.
And as much as Congress or folks talk about it, if Congress truly felt that um, they wanted to do it, appropriate funds. That's
Yeah,
easy. We appropriate funds to
yeah,
give foreign aid to multiple countries,
yeah,
but we can appropriate aid to assist election administrators or implement a system that is free, and then invest into election infrastructure to have the capacity to
yeah,
authenticate a voter.
yeah. Because
Right.
everything costs money.
Absolutely.
So
And
you're saying you don't get enough federal funds to do that, or
there
or there
is
isn't
not
any?
any appropriated for that level of complex database or system to establish. Now, we live in the United States of America. We have the best technology, best military
Right,
in the world.
right.
So if Congress truly believed that we needed to get there,
Got
put your
it.
money where your mouth is.
Got it. I
Fund it,
agree.
build it, you know.
I totally agree with that,
Um,
Joey.
but to me, voter ID again, it's a false sense of security because you assume that there's an authentication system. There's not. It
But if
doesn't
there was
happen.
one in place, use the real ID. Um, it could be, good, right?
Yeah. Sorry, this screen. I don't
Oh,
know.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so let's go
No,
on
no.
to that
Yeah.
one. I think that's a good conversation.
Absolutely.
So let's just do one more because it's already an hour.
Sure.
Why don't you open the mail in ballots and feed them into the tabulator the night of the elections? And I think you already said that. You already talked about the hour. You want to just.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We adjourn at 11 p.m., right? And so New Mexico state statute in the election code says that if a county clerk mails over 10,000 ballots, they can convene the absentee voter board 10 days prior to election. Okay. If they send out under 10,000 absentee ballots, they can convene the absentee board 5 days prior to the election. So, um, and that's by design, right? The folks who only count absentee ballots the day of election and after, what happens? Races are already decided at some point,
Right.
and when you get a dump of results multiple days after election, what do people start saying? Where are all these votes coming from, right? When in reality, had they pre-worked on the tabulation of these absentee ballots, they can release them on election night like New Mexico law allows for us to do, right? But imagine the misinformation that would spread if county clerks in New Mexico only started tabulating ballots on election night number one. You only have 12 hours to do it, right? Because you have to adjourn them by 11 p.m. And let's be honest, mistakes happen.
Yeah.
So what would that mean? That would mean that we would continue tabulating absentee ballots the following day, especially if we have 10,000 ballots. We would be here multiple days tabulating and then releasing results far after election day, and more questions get raised. So what we do here in Sandoval County and most counties do is that 5 days we uh, convene the board. They start going through the process, right? And then they start tabulating. So on election night, whatever we've received and tabulated prior to election day, we're posting absentee and early voting results 20 minutes after the polls close, right? On election day. And then election day results continue to come in after that. I like that process because, again, when starting too late or releasing results way after the fact, in a world full of misinformation, people start to question it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You get a bunch of ballots in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you guys call them absentee, but they're some of them are just
Mail
mail in,
absentee, right?
right? Because back in my day, the only people that did absentee ballots were the people overseas,
Right.
right? But now
Absentee mail in the
anybody,
same mail in ballot,
absentee and mail in are both the same.
right?
And so you start getting them in. And am I hearing you start counting them when you get them in?
So we first, the clerk's office marks the ballot in the ballot register as received. If it's missing the last four of the social or a signature or the year of birth, it goes into cure status. We contact the voter by
And
sending them a
that's done
letter.
by hand or through
Scanner.
a scanner?
All of
Okay.
our staff scan them in,
Okay.
and they go locked in the vault. And then when the absentee board convenes, we do a chain of custody from the county clerk's office.
When do they convene? After
5 days before the election day.
Before the election.
Before election day.
Okay, I see. Okay.
And so when they convene, we provide a chain of custody and a signature and a absentee roster saying the county clerk's office has received all of these ballots, and they have verified the last four of the social, their signature, and their year of birth. So those are then passed over chain of custody to the absentee board. They go through the roster, verify every single ballot we said we provided them is there.
Okay.
Then they sign that we transferred, say it's 1,000 ballots. They verify that they received all 1,000 ballots, and they run the signature roster and verify every name of the ballot that we said we provided them. Okay.
Okay.
We've designed it a little differently here in Sandoval County because they can never go into the next phase of the absentee process until they verify the first phase and they're fully accounted. And by design, and I could show you our sheet, we have deferring party judges verify every step of the phase. Every point is fully accounted for before it goes on, before it even reaches tabulation.
Yeah, I was here when I was one of those people. I don't know what I was, what my title was, but I watched the process, opening the ballots, going through
Watch
each
it again.
one.
It's open to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you invite people to come and look at that?
Absolutely. This warehouse is Sandoval County's warehouse.
Yeah.
I get the privilege and honor of working here every day, but this is your warehouse.
Yeah. Do you do
Every
tours
voter.
and things like that?
Absolutely. I love giving tours of
Okay.
everything we do in this warehouse.
Maybe after the election, we
Absolutely.
can get some people
Come
in here.
through the election.
Yeah.
Come through the process. It's public. School of Instruction, public. Certification tabulators, public. Election night.
Yeah.
We have about 100 people in here, public.
Yeah.
Right. Post-election audit, public. We've only had about 5 people ever show up for public or post-election audit.
Well, like I said, I've never heard anything doing, but I understand the money constraints, and this is why it's good that they're meeting, and we'll get more other individual people to help get the word out, because I think we have to work together, and voters,
Absolutely.
I think freedoms come with responsibilities.
Right. Absolutely.
And being able to vote in New Mexico and the United States requires that the voters absolutely do their part.
Absolutely.
So we're going to finish up right now. I know I had a lot more questions, but that's okay. I think this is enough for right now. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with?
I would just, thank the voters for participating. Tell voters and folks that elections are never going to be perfect, but you have folks who serve their community, love their community, work hard every single day to do their best to administer safe, secure elections. Well, they're never going to be perfect. We've come pretty damn close in the state of New Mexico. All 33 county clerks work super hard. We have a great set of laws that build in transparency, accountability, and bringing folks into the process. And I'm proud of the work that all 33 county clerks do in the state of New Mexico. I'm happy that we have observers, watchers, and challengers. And so come into your local county clerk. They're always happy to welcome visitors. Be here, be part of the process. Come be a poll worker. It's a 4-hour class. We pay you to be part of that system. We're always looking for poll workers, right? Be part of the process. Learn what we do. If you have all this information or questions and you are wondering, come and ask. Make a phone call. I'm happy to provide a tour. I'm happy to invite you here on election night. Uh, and talk about it. I'm an election nerd and geek, so I can go into left field here, talking about everything we do, the safeguards and the process and procedures that we have in place. It's important, right? And I could sit here all day, to be honest with you, and answer questions or dissect them a little further, right? If when we talk about voter ID, if people really want to talk about their concerns, there's a way to do it, but have election administrators at the forefront, right? But when we talk about the implementation of part of the SAVE Act, it doesn't work in Sandoval County. It wouldn't work for here. We have folks in our Navajo Nation who don't have access to uh, basic running water in the United States of America, electricity, and we're going to say we don't think you're a citizen and you can't prove it, so you can't vote. Some of their births aren't registered. That would disenfranchise vote folks, and we have Native American communities in Sandoval County who have been historically disenfranchised. We have litigation in federal court in 1980 saying, we got to do better, right? And so we've come a long way, right? But when we talk about that stuff, um, I believe that what we do is safe, secure. Can we do more? Absolutely, right? But for the most part, I think New Mexico has built a robust election code that brings transparency into the process. And if there is bad actors, there's going to be bipartisan people reporting them, right? When election workers potentially could try to go rogue.
Mm-hmm.
There's more people than one person in there, right? I love what I do. I encourage you all to go vote. You want to learn more about Sandoval County elections, go to www.scnmvote.com. And if you want to register to vote, go to scnmvote.org and go vote. Early voting expanded countywide May 16th through May 30th. Election day is Tuesday, June 2nd. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Corrine, thank you for having this conversation, bringing these great questions. Again, I love to talk about it and elections and learn from folks and
Yep.
hear what they're hearing, right? And how we can do better in messaging what we do and the hard work that our incredible team does every single day, right? Ann and I, County Clerk, we're fortunate to get an incredible team and bring folks in. And I love all of the staff and what they do for Sandoval County. I wish all the voters could see the incredible and hard work that they do every single day. And I'll end with that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on Common Ground today, Joe. And I will tell you that this was a good lesson, I think, for all of us. I'm a little bit more assured. I'm going to do my part and have my daughter cancel and my children because that's our part. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time on Common Ground.
Thank you.